Isn't found, it's created. Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Lama podcast. I'm Gunjan.
I'm Rajiv.
Today we have on our show a chatty Nritya, a powerhouse with 25 years of experience with Siemens Healthineers, as you can see it on her screen. Nritya's journey is a testament that something we truly believe in. Your destiny isn't found, it is created. Nitya, this idea of creating or writing the destiny, if your story was a vibe, what would it be?
Sunrise.
Gunjan, Raji, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. And, a lot of people, ask me, right, talk to me about your journey, how adventurous or heartfelt this was. And I just want to say that, it is a rocky ride in a very positive way, but definitely leading to an adventurous one, right? And let me briefly introduce myself before we really get on to why that adventure kind of set pace with my journey. I was born, and I'm actually born, brought up in Bangalore. I'm a hardcore Bangalorean, and I love the city. It's spite of all its, chaos in terms of traffic and pollution. When I travel, I love to travel, but I really look forward to coming back to Bangalore to be in this chaos because I grew up in not too much of chaos, but it taught me that life is very unpredictable and to kind of go with the flow, right? So I'm married. I have two girls. I've been working. I've had the opportunity and privilege to work for some of the best MNCs here, right? I have about 25 years of industry experience, and my latest stint right now is with Siemens Healthineers, and I've been in this organization for the last 2 years. Now, you were talking to me about the vibe, right? And I think the vibe has been pretty enriching and exciting and unpredictable. And I'd like to really start out, talking about how destiny plays a role in really creating that vibe, right? For me personally, your destiny isn't found. I personally feel it's created, whether it's your career or be it just your personal life, right? You really write it. And I've always resonated with Ralph Waldo, the famous philosopher's quote. He says the only person you are destined to be is the person you decide to be. And then you figure out what your vibe is. So right. Imagine, Gunjan, Rajiv, me holding a blank page where I'm like, okay, now where do I start? And I think the story of one's life starts with that which is yet to be written, right? Some believe destiny is predetermined, but I personally think that, I've learned that every decision, every risk, and every lesson shapes that narrative. And all you have to do is pick up the pen and write that story you want to live. And trust me, it really empowers you, right? I have seen it. For me, it was about, capitalizing on those moments, the opportunity, and really driving into the power of owning my own journey because I felt nobody better than me owned that, right? And writing the destiny I envisioned for myself. And for me personally, at the end of the day, the author of the story was me. In fact, I say it is me even at this point in my career, and it will always be. If you're okay.
Yeah. So, I actually wanted to vouch for a few things because for listeners, I would like to share. I know Nritya for since I think 2000. You joined when we were in BGA, or was it?
Yes.
So
2002.
around 2002.
2002.
Right? Yeah. But you were not there when we were on the Kavan Park.
I was not there,
Camp.
Rajiv, but I have to talk about that in,
Yeah, we
sometime
will
in
talk
this
about
next
it.
1 hour.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Because that office in Infantry Road
Yes.
really helped me, change my perspective about destiny and manifestation. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Because I remember when I met you first, you were part of Gloria's team, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so, I would see you exactly like you said, that somebody who is very clear in her mind, where you want to go. And, I remember the coffee discussions we used to have. And, you were just focused and you actually were willing to walk the mile to get to where, because a lot of people say that destiny, you write your own destiny, but, they really don't do anything about it. They think writing a destiny means just thinking about it. But what I observed in you was exactly, you were willing to walk the mile, tough challenges, and we'll talk about few things, as we progress over discussion.
Right. No, thank you, Rajiv. Thank you. And I have to say, and I'm going to cover this at some point, right? That while you're writing that destiny, when an author really writes his or her book, there are a lot of key players around that are influencing that little stream of water flowing down from the mountain, taking shape through, through the landscape and, making itself, its way with its surrounding. And I think I had some great surrounding of mentors. And I have to call out that you were one of them, right?
Thank
Right
you.
from the start, I have to acknowledge that we were all in EBG from those days
Yes.
till I left, Intel. And even when I went into my next
Cisco, yes, I
organization,
remember.
you
Yes.
remember when I was in
Yes.
Cisco, you never shut the doors. You always said, anytime, just shout out. And I took advantage of that. And I couldn't thank you more, right? Because I
Oh,
think
you're welcome.
mentors really play a great part in one's career journey. And you were a significant part of that mentorship for me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was not fishing for compliments, but thank you.
But you got one,
But
Rajiv.
yeah,
But
he's
you got one.
so just for our listeners and Nritya, I call him Rajiv Modest Nanda. You, no matter what you say, he'll be like, so pretty modest in his own ways. And Nritya, I feel what you were saying, I'm totally aligned. You need mentors, and I somehow feel trust your leaders. That's the motto I carry.
Mhm.
I don't like surprises. I just don't like, and life is full of surprises.
Oh my, tell me about it.
That that moment when you're writing your story, and then okay, here is a surprise that's coming for you. Maybe you're not prepared for that, but that unexpected thing that
Yeah,
changed your life, that you were writing something unexpected came, and that changed your life. Do we have
absolutely.
yes, I'm sure we have a story there. And
I have many stories right throughout my journey, but let me kind of go a little back, right? A backstory to where I really started my journey. And stop. Feel free to stop me and ask me, kind of double click on any points that I say. But I feel my journey has I've never had any regrets, right? Surprises many, U-turns some, but everything has taught me something good in some way or the other at some point, right? And if I really go back, rewinding to 2000, after I finished my master's, right, I found myself back home just lazing around and unsure of what I want to do. You're out of college and you're like, okay, how you have these 101 expectations, parents looking up to you on what's your next move. Forget those 10th standard and 12th standard exam pressures, but it's more of, okay, what next, right? And you're like, okay. And at that point of time, we didn't have, all of these different LinkedIn posts, and you didn't have headhunters, but you went through your morning newspaper, and I was flipping it through like any other day. And an ad caught my eye, right? On a whim, I picked up the phone, I made a call. We had phone numbers there, right? That showed up. And I showed up for the interview. There was no overthinking, there was no long deliberation. And at that point in life, I wasn't in a position to be too choosy. And honestly, I didn't want to be too choosy, right? I just knew I had to start somewhere. And by God's grace, I got that job. I could never be more thankful to the head of that unit who offered me this job. And I said yes without a second thought. But Gunjan Raji, that one spontaneous decision, simply as it seemed just a yes. But that set the wheels in motion for me for a journey I could have never fully planned, right?
Yeah.
And
So,
looking back,
you raise you bring a very, very, very good point, because these days a lot of people reach out, and even the freshers, and I keep telling them that,
yeah,
hey, you don't don't be so picky that you're closing the doors that are opportunities that are opening up for you. Because a
Absolutely.
lot of
We are,
people,
yeah, we are spoiled with,
they say more no to things than they say yes. So what
Very
I
true.
think is that the approach that you're telling about is fantastic, because at that age,
Yeah.
you don't know where the life is going to take you.
You don't know. Absolutely, Rajiv. Spot on, right? And we're talking about Gen Z, we're talking about the alphas, and God knows what next. But I feel it's certain basic, there is a reason of how we all have been brought up, of what our ancestors told us for whatever reason. It's tried and tested. And it's so important that some of these, kind of just sit down and say, let me look at it one moment at a time, and not say, what is my future 10 years, will this lead to my future 10 years down the line, right? It's just about your gut and saying, let me go for it without too many options and
Yes.
thinking too much. And I always, and I think people in today's generation need to pay attention to this more than ever,
Yeah.
right, at this
Yes.
point of time.
Yes.
and
Yes.
Because I'll
I
tell you,
feel,
looking,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
this generation is spoiled with choices. I don't know
Yes, you said it, choices.
if we are the ones
Yeah,
who are giving them
but I think that should actually give them more opportunity to say yes. What I see is that, what Nritya is talking about is, the risk taking that was imbibed in our thinking, and especially, at Intel, that's one of
Oh
the
my,
core values,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And what you're explaining is exactly that, you take a risk, and like you said earlier, that if it doesn't work out, you take a U-turn and take another risk.
Yeah, it's all,
Yeah.
and you have time in hand, Rajiv. I was a point
Yes.
of time where, you know, like I said, there was nothing for me to think too much. I was single. It was a play field I could experiment on. So just go for it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like, okay, if I had to pay attention to, the figures that were there, the digits that were there on my offer letter, I mean, who knows, maybe 5 years down the line, I would regret. So just go for it, right? And
Yeah.
then, we
Yeah.
figure out
Yeah.
things. And I think
Yeah.
looking back, that was the first page in the story where I began writing my destiny, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So but that was not Intel, right? So the first job I
That
remember
was
was
that
some.
was Citibank, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
talk a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
talk about how I really landed into,
Yeah.
Intel, right? It was pretty interesting and something that I wouldn't have dreamt of. But let me talk a little bit about it, and maybe there are some parallels the listeners could, draw. The first job that I picked up was with a direct selling agent for Citibank, right? Like I said, I was out of college. It was not glamorous, but it was exactly what I needed. I needed something where I could put my energy towards and not be sitting lazily. Sometimes you get that gap between college and work, and you get into a different frame of mind. So I dived right into it, eager to learn, willing to do the groundwork, get my hands dirty, and slowly started to find my rhythm, right? And each small win gives you so much happiness. It builds so much confidence, and that's exactly what happened to me. I think each challenge that came by, Rajiv, Gunjan, just sharpened my instincts, right? I didn't have it all figured out, to be honest. I was very far from it. But I had to take the first step, and that gave me something powerful, which is called momentum.
Mhm.
Opportunities honestly did not land in my lap, right? It was I did my MBA in marketing and sales. This was a sales job, and you know how sales is. I know it today, but I didn't know it back then. I didn't know the baggages it came with. I had to chase opportunities, right? Sometimes stumble into them and often create them from scratch, because we had a portfolio of clients. Sometimes your instinct on which client to go, with first. It's a lot. It's a lot for a first timer. But I was
Mhm.
enjoying my journey, right? I became more intentional, about the roles I chose, the leaders I wanted to work from. So this job gave me a lot for my future, and it clearly carved out the kind of professional I was becoming, and the path that I wanted to build for myself, right? I was really learning to build it myself, taking one decision at a time. And that's why I was saying earlier on that this my journey has been adventurous. There have been many heartfelt moments, into that adventure, and I'd like to keep it that way because my memory book of my career, those moments really stand out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Nritya, I want to understand this, and it's like how difficult it is to make a U-turn. It's doubting yourself, or is it the kind of grit you need to convince yourself, okay, I made a bad decision, or this is not something I wanted to do?
Yeah.
How difficult it is to make that U-turn?
So I'll tell you, that's a great question, right, Gunjan? And see, a U-turn comes in only when you doubt yourself, when you doubt that you're not capable. In my experiences, right? And many a time when I felt I needed to take a U-turn, I always consulted some of my mentors who felt that maybe this is not about doubting yourself, but maybe it's just that next big opportunity for you, right? It takes a lot of, a lot of energy out of you. It takes a lot of thinking because you're like, am I making the right decision? Am I worth that path once I take that U-turn? Or, more than U-turn, it's like, are you shifting gears? You're traveling, right? You're going, say, from Mysore to Uti. Somewhere in between, you get distracted. You feel that, this is a path to the right that I might find that wildlife that I'm looking for. But how sure am I whether that path is not risky? Unless you travel that path, you won't know.
Yes.
Right? Let me talk about the first job that landed me in, Citibank. I was talking to you about it, right? Um, it's the only asset I had with me was the art of conversation and the ease with people. I loved to talk to people. I love people around me, and till this date, it's my comfort zone. But this job demanded much more, right? It required resilience, it required adaptability, it required patience and a thick skin. I faced rejections, unanswered calls. Like I said, I was in sales, doors closed on me mid sentences midway, and I'm like, from being a very protected environment in college to this, I'm like, is this my cup of tea? Should I take a U-turn?
Mm.
But somewhere I said, it did not break my spirit, and I said, let me figure this out, right? And if anything, failure became my greatest teacher. And that's what I can say, right? I learned not to take it personally, but instead I saw it as a nudge to try a different route, to refine my approach. And some were rainy days, right? Some were, shiny days. Sometimes the forecast was not even clear to me. And I was like, should I just do something different? And I remember at that point of time having a conversation with my then boss. And, it's so important that you have a motivating leader by your side. And the question, that you asked, the grit that you need, the confidence that you need comes with people like this that you choose to carry on your shoulder over time, right? What kept me going was, leave alone the passion, the excitement, and the thrill of having nothing to lose. Like I said, right, I was single, I'm like fresh out of college, let me figure it out, right? I decided not to take a U-turn.
Yeah.
And
So Nritya, I think the main thing, the very important thing that you're mentioning is that, where I think people get lost is that if you have to take a U-turn, how do you bounce back?
Yeah.
And, I remember many instances between when we were together at Intel, we would talk and,
Yeah.
there were things that, like you were saying, you start doubting yourself. And typically, I know that the mentors or the people you reach out to, they fall in the trap of being sob stories, right? But the grit is not about sob story. It is about, being very harsh to yourself, very clear-headed.
Yeah.
And that's what I observed that you had right from the beginning. So let's talk about the, those journey that you had, when you moved from Citibank, and I think then the next was Intel, or was there any?
Yeah, let me talk about my Intel story because I think there, I had a lot of instances, really talking about shaping my career, right? There were many a time when I'm like, what, did I make the right choice moving here? And I think, let me, if you're okay, I can talk about that, and I'm sure we can draw
Yeah, yeah.
parallels
Oh,
in
yeah,
terms
yeah,
of what you're
absolutely.
actually, um, looking to hear from me. So, you know, have you heard of Lego blocks? We all
Yes.
love Lego blocks, right? Um, I feel I've learned a lot with that game, watching my children play, and many a time, in fact, even in some of the leadership programs that I've run, even till today, for me, Lego is something that you kind of figure out the turn you want to take, the blocks you want to build, and how you really want to, proceed further, right? And shaping my career has felt a lot like building with Lego blocks. You start with a rough idea of what you want to really create, and piece by piece, experience by experience, the picture starts to take shape. Sometimes the blocks don't fit the way you expected, but that's where the most unexpected and amazing parts get built, right? So they became a pivotal, moment in my career, testing point that would shape the next chapter. And it started like any other day, right? But this one felt a little different. And I'm talking about, before I go into, actual intel, this is this is a small situation, or a day that came when I was still with Citibank, right? I had been given a major corporate account to handle, which I was always envying of my seniors who were holding this, and I was eager to make an impression. It wasn't just an opportunity to close a deal, it was a sign that the senior team believed in my potential, right? And within a year, I was entrusted with managing this big account, a move that really boosted my confidence, sharpened my pitch, and made me feel really good. One day, as I walked the doors of that new company, and that company was none other than Intel Technologies, something changed for me. There was a spark, right? There was a feeling that ran through me, almost like a whisper saying, this is the place and this is where I want to be. I started becoming greedy, right? Now, Intel just started to make waves in the industry. And Rajiv, you were talking about the Carbon Park office. This was the one in Infantry Road.
Mhm.
I still have a clear picture of that glass building with the
Yes.
red
Yeah.
panels and the blue Intel.
Yeah.
Gives me goosebumps even today, because that started becoming a dream for me, right? And every conversation I had when I was to go there, I used to meet Rajiv Bharadwaj and the others in the
Yes.
HR team. You know them, right?
Yeah.
Every visit to that office deepened my aspiration, right? I didn't realize it at that time, but I was manifesting my future. And just months later, an opportunity came up with them, right? It was like a dream come
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But I feel with all big decisions, it wasn't as simple as it seemed, right? Moving out of my comfort zone into a more demanding environment made me really, really nervous. But I think what kept me grounded, before I come to the U-turn that I took from this to, new organization, I feel there are a lot of factors that influence you during these tough decision-making points. My then, manager who was there, who was heading the unit at Citibank, the sales, corporate sales unit, he told me it's a dream come true, right? That account is vital to the bank, but you might never get a break like Intel, right? That was an unexpected twist in my story, a U-turn that I had to take from sales to HR because I was given a job within HR.
Yes.
A twist that really got me starting to write my new page of my destiny, right? And I'll always be grateful. But I also had my doubts, Rajiv. We talk about grit, we talk about hesitation, we talk about resistance, doubting ourselves. I was in that position, right?
Yeah.
I have to call out that my then best friend, who's my husband now, he was a huge support, right? He was a huge support, and he reminded me that I was the best version of myself when I took risks, when I embraced the uncertainty, right? And he kind of pushed that self-doubt and said, time to take that U-turn. This is meant for you. And I feel it's then that I truly started filling in that page of my destiny, because it was in my hands. Everyone gave me tips and tricks, gave me the advice, but I had to take that final decision. So my message here is, don't hesitate to take a U-turn. Don't hesitate to move out of your comfort zone. You will doubt yourself,
Yes.
but that doubt is only leading to something better.
Yeah,
And
but you see, it's not just a doubt. You also had a very strong gut feeling that
yes,
this is the place you want to be.
yes,
This is a
absolutely,
company. So,
absolutely.
Intel in those days, I joined Intel in 1994,
Yeah,
right? So in the US. And I remember, the feeling that you're talking about. I remember the first week when I was there, I was a consultant at that time, not an employee.
right.
And I came back home and I told my wife that I think I found my home. So exactly the feeling about
Yeah,
aspiration and all that. Intel has changed a lot over the decades, but
yeah,
but the main thing, I think the key thing that people need to understand is that risk taking is good,
yeah,
but your gut feeling has to be very strong. If it feels that this is the right thing to do,
yeah.
then it
Go
is the
for
right
it.
thing to do.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, and spot on, Rajiv, because I think it was also my gut, right? Something told me there. One is I feel the message today is manifest what you want. And your gut, it's built in you, right? It takes you always towards that 5% of right direction that others did not show you. It's your gut.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
decision that, and because of that gut feeling, I feel the decision marked a major turning point in my career, right? It was a leap into a world of, learning, resilience, great people I met. Of course, it was out of my comfort zone, and I can talk about it, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
was very challenging the first year. In fact, the first 2 months, Rajiv, was very challenging, and I'd love to talk about that, right? Because I
Sure.
know
Let's talk about it. Yes.
a lot of people
And
face that. In fact, I tell my daughter about that, right? She's doing her undergrad, and tomorrow she's going to get a job, and I don't want her to think this is like a fancy world. I know it all. I'm getting these good marks. You're in test period there.
Yes.
Don't think
Yes.
it's,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, but I think, it was a leap that I took, and I'm so glad I. So spot on when you talk about, the gut, your sixth sense. Finally, you can have. It's all needed. You need the best mentors. You
Yeah.
need those
Yeah.
cheerleaders. But it is you. You are your best cheerleader.
And you will attract them. You will attract the right
yes,
mentors. You will attract,
yes,
if
You
you
will.
have what is
You
it
will.
in you,
Very
yeah,
true.
you will attract the
and
right people.
yeah, and Nritya,
Yeah.
Rajiv has mentioned earlier as well in one of our podcasts that women hit the glass ceiling effect very quickly. It's
Yes.
like, I'm doing good, I'm doing
Yes.
great, I have kids to take after. Do I really need to do this? Do I really need to push that? And all those feelings. And amidst,
Yes.
you came out of your comfort zone, something big
Very true.
happened. And I'm sure something big must have happened to you, like when you are at that zone that I'm super comfortable here, I'm not going anywhere else. And then that decision of stepping out of comfort zone.
Yeah.
How
Absolutely.
how difficult, easy, or if you pause and reflect, how does that change your life?
Great question, Gunjan. Something that we're always talking about. It's the favorite word today. Is just the glass ceiling, right? We're all talking about either shattering it or trying to get out of it. And I think yes, I have bumped into it more than once. But Gunjan, Rajiv, what they don't tell you about the glass ceiling is that it doesn't crack on its own. You have to really push. You have to challenge and sometimes walk away from what's comfortable to break through it, right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you a story. I remember very, very vividly, right? It was October, Diwali time, crackers all around. I was busy doing my usual pre-Diwali cleaning. And in between my tasks, I get a missed call from a very dear ex-colleague from Intel, right? I'd love to share my Intel story a little later. I was there for 10
Yeah.
years, and
Sure.
I want
Sure.
to kind
Sure.
of take you through that journey a little later, but let's talk about the glass ceiling. I think it's the right time to, talk on this topic. Now, I was with Intel in my comfort zone, enjoying what I was doing. I knew people. I knew it was never the unknown, right? I knew people because 10 years when you're growing with the organization, you're growing with people, right? They become your friends. They become your confidant. They become, a piece of ease, right?
Yeah.
And you wanted to move that. So I get this call and a very dear colleague who was my mentor in Intel as well. And when I called her back, she spoke about this really exciting opportunity at her company, right? And I told her, I'll think about it. I'll call you back. And me, I need that push, right? Whether it's from Citibank to Intel or from Intel to Cisco, it's always that those 2 3 hours where you want not to, you want to wake up and say, I want that, but I still don't want that, Um, I called her back and I said, okay, I'll think about it. And that hesitation, that fear of moving from the known to the unknown was very dominant, right? Leaving that credibility that you've created, especially in a company like Intel, right? I mean, it's one of the companies that's been very dear to me because it had its own career progression for its employees.
Mhm.
But when you get a follow-up call and someone believes in your potential, you begin to, believe in it too, right?
Yes.
So I decided, I don't know what happened, right? Again, talking about gut, Rajiv, which you brought up, right? This thing that is like your, it never leaves you. It's always with you, right? It's like reminding you I'm here. I decided to take the plunge. And before I knew it, I was interviewed for a role at Cisco, right? Of course, with a larger scope, a wider canvas, and, loud chatter. That's how I would describe it. And just like that, within weeks, the offer came through, and there I was, right? It just happened so fast. There was hardly any time to pause and think. But two things gave me the confidence to say yes, right? And I think these are few things that people might resonate with. That trust is very, very important, right? And I'm going to come back to the question that Gunjan asked me about the glass ceiling, right? I'm going to come back to that. But the trust I had in my former mentor, who was also my ex-colleague, who was now, with Cisco, that inner voice said that this might be the next big step. That voice that came back after years, which once spoke to me when I was in Citibank, spoke to me again. And I remember, I told myself, Rajiv, and I'll talk to you about my journey in Intel, right? And I know you know my story, but I want to say this because I know a lot of people, it could benefit a lot of people who doubt, the system or doubt themselves, right?
Mhm.
But I reminded myself that if I could make it through those first uncertain years, actually months at Intel,
Yes.
I could make
Yes.
it anywhere,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So your journey, you've already gained confidence in yourself. You know you can do things, right? And I'll always carry a deep gratitude for that, for Intel, because like I said, the people, the rich learning, the unmatched culture, oh my God, unmatched culture. I have to say that. Even till today, right? Some of its values and culture I hold very dear to me and I practice in my various roles.
Yeah.
But I told myself it's time to write the next page. And I joined Cisco in 2013. Those 8 years, Raji, were nothing short of transformation, right? And the exposure that I had to global leaders, groundbreaking programs, truly meaningful projects was beyond anything I imagined, right? I was fortunate to work under some of the most respected managers along some really good business leaders. And just soaking in all that knowledge and that exposure, the ability to stretch myself beyond my comfort made me grow, right? Not just in the role, but in my vision. And I started to crave for more. But Rajiv, one thing I want to highlight here that bad times, right? Or let me say that everything isn't smooth, right? There came a period when I became stagnant in that, even in
Environment.
that,
Yes.
high charged environment, right? It hits you. When my career wasn't progressing at the pace I wanted because I had tasted good times, I had tasted good projects, I had become greedy. I wanted to create an impact everywhere, right? At that point, going back to Gunjan's question, I had felt I had hit the glass ceiling. It was frustrating, but it also forced me to really pause and reflect on what I really wanted and what I needed to do differently. So sometimes hitting the glass ceiling is not negative, right?
Yes.
You get to reflect on yourself. And I think I got that opportunity. And what helped me break through wasn't just working hard, because working hard, Rajiv, I feel there is no substitute.
Yeah.
Hard work is 100% needed, right?
Yes.
I think those were just being good in what you're doing. Those were just table stakes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Choices you made.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it was the choice, Rajiv Gunjan, that I made at that point of time when I got that little time to reflect, was to stretch, was to step into stretch roles, was to speak up even when I was uncomfortable. And Rajiv, I have to name you that you had taught me this in Intel to speak up, even if it was uncomfortable.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I remember it till today, right? I don't forget. And
Yeah.
I
Thank
also,
you.
and I know this is so important. This is
Yes.
important for beginners. This is important for, experienced people who need to hit the reset button. And also very important to seek out to sponsors, not just
Yeah.
mentors.
Yeah.
Seek
Yeah.
out to sponsors, right? Who believe in your potential. So I really reached out to those who believed in my potential, even before I fully did, right? And I think I took on external facing assignments, worked with startups out of my comfort zone, right? And I kept adding to my toolkit. I was
Mhm.
enjoying the journey because I was taking risks. I was trying new things. But that's the only way to, break that glass ceiling and really
Yeah.
discover what truly excitement from a career standpoint meant to me,
Yeah.
right?
But there are two things that I want to actually add, some color to it. So, and based on our experience together, as you were growing, you were, learning and growing and expanding your horizon. At the same time, if you remember, many people would reach out to people like me, seniors that, but they would only be, complaining. One thing that I know about you that you have never complained. Whenever the like the glass ceiling you hit or the program, there were as you rise through the career, the corporate politics
Oh
comes
my.
into play, right? So there's at that time, because India was growing, US was not
Yeah,
growing, and
yeah,
there were so many interdepartmental or
yeah.
politics that we had to deal with, but I
Oh
never
my.
saw you shying away from doing what was needed to be done, right? So two things that I think listeners should take from this. One, either you complain about the journey or you feel that you're empowered to overcome the whatever challenges you face. That's one. And second, glass ceiling is meant to be broken. That's why it is called glass ceiling. It is not
Yes,
cement ceiling.
yes.
So, and that's where I think, you have exhibited not once, but multiple times, even within Intel I remember when, you were, I think, with different managers, right? Rajiv Bhardwaj, then Gloria, and then
I've
other, and
had
then,
many managers, right?
exactly. So where I saw you growing was every time where you said, okay, shit has hit the fan, but I will mop it up and I will move
Yeah,
forward and I will learn from it and not sulk
yeah.
about it. No, we can sulk, we can complain. That venting out always happens. But to
It
keep
doesn't
that
take you
focus was something.
places. You,
Exactly.
you can you can you can vent. I feel, Rajiv, you can vent to your trusted circle,
Yes. Yes.
but complaining and making yourself feel sorry for yourself is a dead end.
Yeah. That's not
You know,
Nritya then. That is not
Uh,
Nritya, I know.
and complaining is a habit. Complaining
Yeah.
is a habit. It's not yeah.
yeah.
So
But
Yeah.
I think,
it's
by 2021, with all of that, it was not about one big move, right? It was
Hmm.
about, constantly beating on myself, even when the system was right. I
Hmm.
was conscious on pushing the boundaries. And I think by 2021, Rajiv, I was ready for something bigger, right? Something
Right.
that, combined domain depth with leadership, innovation. And I think that opportunity found me, right? So talking
Yes.
about, the glass ceiling you hit, I mean, you hit it there, but then think further what you want to do, right? How do you want to break it,
Yes.
right? And I
Yes.
can talk about that next phase of my
Yeah.
journey,
Yeah.
but let me
Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
questions you have, and
yeah.
we can talk
So
about that.
yeah, owning your path sounds very empowering, and these big picture, they look good, but
Mhm.
nobody knows those small steps, those small efforts that you put in to get something big. So, what is your go-to things that make you feel charged every day, except for tea and coffee, like those small tea and coffee breaks? What are those things that make you feel
Beer,
really?
wine,
I
cocktails.
know. Yeah, except for breaks. What are
Coffee,
those small?
chocolate mousse, those were the days, Rajiv, when I would get into office.
Yeah.
And, I still remember, right, the little group we were. You all would make fun of me because all of you would go for chai and coffee, and I would go for the chocolate mousse. Today,
Yes.
if I look at chocolate mousse, I'm putting on 5 kgs. So, those were the days.
Yep, yep.
So you were wise to have it when you could. Now you cannot, and you do not have that regret that okay, tab खा सकती थी, metabolism अच्छा था. So
I'd love to look at it that way, good.
yeah.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
So,
So
so
this is,
Nritya,
I
a
think,
couple of
yeah, yeah.
things. You went through the journey, but there are, I'm sure, very tough decisions you may have to take, right? A lot of people talk about, the career, and then they say, oh, I want to take a break, or I want a balanced life, this and that. What I have observed with you is that you progressed in your career, but you also did not let go of the family. You did not let go of the vacation. I see your Instagram pictures, all the
Oh my, Rajiv,
fun.
let's not even get into
Yeah,
that.
we've been friends like for like 20 plus years, right? So, going around the world, having fun. And this is something I remember I think we also talked about a couple of times, that balance of life is not that you have to squeeze the balloon and push your
So
energy
true.
from one place. You have to do everything at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what are the tips and tricks you can give to the listener that, how to correctly balance your life?
I just hope none of my, future to be managers or my previous managers are listening to this podcast when I talk about this. But
Yeah,
Rajiv,
you
no,
don't care. That's fine.
When you say no, things come naturally.
absolutely. And Rajiv knows just the right questions to ask me, right? And
Yeah.
I'm on record. No, but I actually love this question, Rajiv. You know, there should be something in life that always keeps you going, that always distracts you for the better. When I was with Intel, right? I had my first daughter when I was with Intel. I had my second daughter when I was in Cisco. The I have to say these organizations and my leaders were so supportive, right? So it's a mind shift change that people around you need to see.
Mm.
Work-life balance, working from home, hybrid way of working is all being spoken today.
Yeah.
What were we with at that point of time? But it's humanity that comes into play. It's mature leadership that I
Yeah.
saw in these organizations that enable that maturity in me today as a
Yes.
leader, right? And at that point of time, it's about what was my priority. But I never chose to take a break from maternity, whatever maternity leave you get. I took that and I wanted to get back to work because of that kind of environment, right? So I think a change in environment, be it in your personal life or your professional life, for the better, for positivity is the key, Rajiv. And for me, it was all about, being with a child, nursing, feeding, cleaning. My de-stress zone was work, right? And if my work gave me stress, talking about mental health today, there was no one talking about mental health back then. You had to figure it out yourself.
Yes, exactly.
But, I felt it was the people you grow with who kind of, it was not easy, like I said, when I joined Intel, right? But,
Mm.
you kind of say that, let me choose people who are my cheerleaders, right?
Mm.
And those are the people who help you in these small or big wins, right? Who kind of de-stress you from the norm.
Mm.
My de-stress was work when I was bringing up my children. And of course, when I went back to my children, at a certain point, it was stressful because you're,
Yeah.
feeding, cleaning, not
Yes.
having sleep. But at a certain stage in my life, for me, travel gave me a lot of thinking time.
Mm.
For me, I needed thinking time. Rajiv, even today, I need to go for a walk. When I go for a walk in the morning, it gives me thinking time. I need a lot of me time. I need time away from, work, right? The pressures of work, which is travel. I need time away from just home, which is work. So it kind of goes together and you balance it. And I feel you have to find your moments
Yeah.
that let you breathe. The day you don't find your moment at work, where you feel I have to get up in the morning and oh my God, do I have to go to work? Time to think of that U turn.
Exactly. Absolutely. I think
Bang on.
a couple of very good points that you explained. One, and I've been a very big proponent of that we have to have me time.
Have to.
If you do
And
not ground yourself every
Yeah.
day, you will be full of static electricity. So
Oh
you have
my,
to.
absolutely.
Right.
yeah,
So
Absolutely.
you'll be always charged, and
Yeah.
you will be like a chicken with a head, cut
headless
off head,
chicken.
right?
Yeah.
So headless chicken,
Yeah.
and yeah, and obviously the companies that you mentioned are great because of the culture that they bring in. They give
I've
you
been
the
very
facility,
fortunate to be in companies that have a good culture, right?
and
All
that's, I think, so
companies.
very good message to people who are aspiring leaders today
Yeah.
or who are in leadership position today.
Yeah.
That the leaders have a lot to do with how they create the culture of the company.
Very
And
much, Rajiv, very much. And
so
I think on those lines, Rajiv, if I can add in, you were asking me, how do you, get that me time? One thing is, you, for people in an organization, I'd like to say is build the trust within your circle. Never take advantage of the freedom an organization gives you for that me time. Respect
yes,
that.
yes,
And as a leader, right, believe in your teams, your stakeholders, create a team that is far better than you.
yeah,
And you're taken care of. You get your me
yeah,
time, you get your, success. Because trust me, I think between GE and between Siemens, I've had the best teams, right? They bring out a version of me that I didn't know. They kind of fill the gaps for me, right? And I think those are the
yes,
small little wins, be it big or small, that keep you going. That helps you push that restart button and say, I can get through it.
Well,
absolutely.
last question for you, Nritya. You mentioned destiny is a matter of choice. I totally love that. And what was that choice that really shaped you?
I wish I could stick to one, Gunjan.
One,
Let me
I
think,
know.
right? But you know what, Gunjan, Rajiv, it was saying yes to the role that I wasn't, that there was no promotion on a paper, but offered to me with visibility, with ownership, and the chance to work on something that really mattered deep to me, right? It wasn't the most obvious move. It taught me, to kind of bet on growth over title, right? And focus on the impact over comfort.
Yeah,
I won't mention names, but
Very
I took
well
a pay
said.
cut when I moved organizations once, and I'm so glad I did that because that one decision opened doors I couldn't have seen at the time.
uh,
And today I think that was the most important decision. And it taught me that we shape our careers by how brave we are willing to be in those
yeah,
small moments,
yeah,
not just in your big ones. Those are the small moments, right? And I've really come to realize that your destiny isn't something you wait for. It's something you craft, one decision, one risk, one leap
yeah,
at a time.
yeah,
And you write it with courage, with intention, and with the people you choose to walk along. And that's what I did. I took the people who matter to me. I've never forgotten anyone. I've always kept in touch with people. And I've always been very grateful, right? And I'm proud of how I've come so far because there were many challenges. But I'm even more grateful to have some of the best mentors and leaders around me, right? That really helped me shape that path in a big way.
yeah. It is
Very
because,
well.
yes, and I'll repeat that again, that it is because you show that promise. See, it's like a gardener always focuses on the flowers that are willing to bloom. So, so the right, I always say that it's leaders' responsibility to find the diamond in the rough. Everybody can go buy a diamond that is polished and everything, but a diamond in the rough is something that only a true leader can identify and mentor and coach and build. But the diamond has to be ready to be polished.
Yeah.
It's
No.
not easy.
No,
So
yeah.
a couple of things that I always talk about this. I talked about the finding diamond in the rough, right? Or the other thing that you raised very well, which I have always believed in, and I tell everybody is that the life you live is the days that you live, right? So it's every day that you are living is the life.
True.
So the point that you raised, that every day you have to decide how you want to live, because at the end of 10 years or 20 years, that is how you have lived. So, very powerful messages. I'm so glad that, you joined our podcast. I had reached out to you and, few other people, but you and Preeti and Sherry, you responded. And, because I saw, we worked together for those 10, 20 years. I saw the impact that each of you created. And I'm so glad that you, joined and talked to us.
Thanks,
Brilliant,
Rajiv. I think, yeah, go ahead, Gunjan. Sorry.
brilliant conversation, Nritya, and it really resonated when you said take risk. And I firmly believe not taking risk is a bigger risk. Go for it. देखा जाएगा जो होगा. Closing lines from your side, Nritya.
Um, you know, um, I might take a little longer than a closing line, but something I want to say, right? Today, I find myself leading the knowledge management and learning group at Siemens, the function, a role that came to me through a leader who I worked with in my previous organization, right? And this wasn't just another opportunity, it was a powerful reminder that when you show up with passion, you stay sincere to your work and focus on the collective success, people notice. Doors open, and often when you least expect them. So, for the listeners, keep your eyes, your ears open, and be sincere, right?
Yes.
And looking back, each move in my career, be it from Citi to Intel, Intel to Cisco, Cisco to GE, and now Siemens, it's been fueled not by chance, right? But by relationships, referrals, and mentors who believed in me, right? They've seen me grow, they've challenged me, they've lifted me, and really shaped the chapters that I've written, right? And that's why I say you write your own destiny, but there is an environment around you influencing that pen that you're using to write. And even now, they continue to guide and mentor me. And I can never forget, I have to say this, that Rajiv, right? Bettina Davis was a global people development manager. And she once told me when she left Intel that you're going to own a learning firm one day. And I laughed to myself, right? And I said, really? I had no choice to, ignore it, saying no way. I had choices to either ignore it or tell myself, believe in it, or manifest it. And I think I manifested and I believed in myself, right? And today I always think of her. I might not be leading a learning institute, but I am leading a learning function where
Yes.
all my learnings, my practices have come into play. It's like a little startup.
Yeah.
And while I'm proud of how far I've come, I know my story is still unfolding, right? Because I still have miles to go before I sleep and many more pages to write. I just want to
Fantastic.
thank you both for this platform and for inviting me to talk. Very rarely do you get to talk about your journey. It's only inspiring me to go further.
Oh, you will.
Inspiring
I'm sure
and
you will.
inspiring for so many people as well. Thank
Yes.
you so much for joining our show, Nritya. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Do visit our website, thelielama.com, THELLIAMA.com. Let us know if you want to come on our show. We'd be more than happy to host you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.